everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we'll be looking at transforming talent and unveiling the elements of a high-impact early career program. The webinar will be an interview with opportunities to answer any questions from the audience at the end. Please put your questions in the chat box, and we will endeavour to answer as many as possible. Without further ado, please allow me to introduce our interviewer for today, Fiona Pauly. Fiona is a performance optimization coach, specializing in emotional intelligence and leadership development. Also, Fiona has diverse experience working with engineering, automotive, and with sports organizations, including Formula One.
Thank you. Welcome to everyone to our latest webinar with the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. As you've just heard, we are going to be talking about those early career programs and how making them as impactful as possible can really help the retention of our talent and the engagement with our talent at work. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our speaker today, Andy Webber. Welcome, Andy Webber. He's one of our associates for the Institution of Mechanical Engineers training and events team. Welcome, Andy. How are you doing today?
Hi, Fiona. I'm very well, thank you. Welcome to everybody. Just to add a little bit to that, I'm currently an associate, but I have actually in the past been employed by the institution. So we've just changed the way that we work together over the last couple of years. But I've been working very closely still with the institution, and ran my first workshop with the institution about 23 years ago. So I'm heavily involved in
showing your age. Sorry, Andy, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're showing your age there.
I've got a filter on to make myself look younger.
Very good. So please tell us a little bit more about your experience with the institution and with early careers.
So with the institution, I've been involved with the L&D department and involved with learning and development in all kinds of different ways, but principally designing and delivering workshops, whether they be historically face-to-face, since the trials of COVID, a lot of it has, and actually it was before, lots more online, and now we're kind of in between the two, some and some. But that's my my experience, and specifically with these kinds of programs, we have been working with different clients in all kinds of different ways over the years, from just drop in delivering the odd workshop, through a much closer relationship with one organization, which I'll talk about a little bit during the course, I think, probably of the answering your questions, where over the 12 years, we became very closely involved in they called it the graduate program, but it's an early careers program essentially. And to the point where it was essentially outsourced to us in the end. And we were not only involved in delivering workshops, but obviously design of the program in the first place, but the administration of the program, liaising with line managers and all kinds of stuff other than what I did. So it was a team effort.
Absolutely. And I think that's quite important, actually, right, to look at that distinction between what we call early careers, because they're not necessarily graduates, right? There's lots of different ways that people are coming into organizations and
right. Starting
at the beginning of their career. I think before we really get chatting, and Andy and I are known to like a good old natter from time to time, I'd like to do a quick poll with the audience, and it's a fairly straightforward yes/no answer. So if we can just bring the poll up now, please. And essentially, do you have an early careers program or don't you? So if you can pop a quick yes/no into the chat box, we'd really be interested to hear what perspective you are coming from in terms of your specific organisations. So how do you approach the design of these programs, Andy? What are you looking for in that design process?
It's, I mean, fundamentally, it's really important, like anything of this nature, is to be very clear on what the objectives are and what the purpose of the program is, and nail those down very clearly right from the start. But fundamentally, in terms of development of the population who are attending, this one particular program that I was heavily involved in, we used to talk about the three-legged stool, and imagining that, you know, there were three areas of competence, and if one of the areas of competence, if one of the legs was shorter or not there, then the stool would fall over. So we're trying to find this balance between, on the one hand, people skills, you know, how do we work with people, on another, business, understanding business skills, and then finally technical skills. So typically engineering, or because it was an organization-wide program, we also had what you might call functional skills, technical or professional skills. Some people from finance, for example, some of the graduates were in the finance team. It wasn't just engineers.
Right. Okay. So how do you go about identifying and using those aims of the program?
So, well, that really is right at the very beginning. And again, it depends on how the relationship with the customer starts. Usually the customer already knows why they want to have a program, and we just refine and clarify exactly what the aims of the program are. But
Okay.
it could be, if we're, you know, starting from scratch, then, you know, we might need to do a little bit more work on that.
Okay. And once you've really got that three-legged stool, you know, nice and clear, nice and stable, what is the purpose of a program like this for organizations, in your experience that you've worked with?
Well, most organizations, I mean, fundamentally, it's about the development of the early careers candidates on the program. That's really obviously the main intent for having a program like this. But there were very often other stated aims around things like diversity. One of the organizations I used to work with had a goal to lower the average age in the organization. So they very much wanted to recruit younger people into the organization, and this kind of program helped to do that. Gender profile, you know, there was no reverse discrimination or involved in the process, but simply engineering graduates, there's a more equal, sadly not completely equal still, but a more equal spread of male to female graduates nowadays than there were 50 years ago. So just by recruiting from that population, you tend to improve the balance. There was very much a goal to attract and then retain talent into the organization. And I think one of the things that a graduate's looking for, you know, a high potential graduate in particular, is, you know, are they going to be invested in? And in the recruitment phase, it was really important for this organization to be able to talk to them about the program that they were going to attend. So it was very much an important strand of recruiting the right people. And of course, also, it was about looking to the future a little bit, succession planning. You know, the leaders of the future, if you like, they were identified in that recruitment process, and then this program was there to boost and sort of fast track them into more senior leadership roles. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? I can imagine over the course of time that you've worked on, you know, you've got 20 plus years of working with these engineering to high-tech organizations, but also in this kind of early career space, you know, actually what what graduates or apprentices or younger people today are looking for in terms of a recruiter. They are interviewing the recruiter as much as the recruiter's interviewing them, right? And actually the challenges and the skill development, the emotional intelligence, the technical competencies, I think we're quite good at training technical competencies because that's all the fun stuff for engineering companies. But what these young people are going to be challenged with in the world of business in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, I mean, with the development of AI and all of that kind of stuff, it is a very different canvas of what's coming. And I think, having one of these career programs that, like you've discussed, what is the purpose? What is the aim? What are we really trying to do to future-proof the business, the industry, the technology, the things that we don't even know yet? I think it's, it is such an integral part of that marketing and recruitment process that some people may have overlooked. I'm going to give you some updates on our poll. I don't know if you've got that on your screen. So actually tiny glasses, 6% of our audience do have graduate programs or early careers programs, let's say, and 52% don't. So we've got a really quite balanced split in terms of people dialing in. So hopefully what we're going to talk about for the ones that already have those programs is how do we finesse it, how do we improve it, what things to think about. And for the ones that are coming to the party fresh, hopefully this is, the beginning of a journey for us to, work together or help or advise in any way, which way we can. Because I quite like a poll, I'm going to do another one, but I promise it's the last one. So would you like to pop up the next poll for us? And for those that do have early careers programs, or actually for anyone, so both sides of that do and don't, we're really intrigued as to how many people are coming into your organization on average every year as that early career stage. So, are you a smaller organization and you've got potentially one or two, or are you a much bigger organization and you've got, 50, 150 people coming in? So if we pop the second poll up, we just give you a little minute to fill that information in if you know it. So you mentioned earlier, Andy, the three-legged stool. How do you address the elements of that stool? What happened in that process in this experience you had with this key customer?
So I think fairly obviously, given my background, that I had the most involvement in the people part, the soft skills part, if you like. I'm not an engineer myself, despite working for the IMechE, and my experience and knowledge lies within those soft skills. So we very much designed that part of the program in terms of things like self-awareness, time management, how to manage people's perceptions of you, how to build and maintain relationships. We did stuff on problem solving and innovation, creativity, and communicating and influencing and presentation skills, all kinds of all the sorts of skills that these guys were going to need to progress in their careers within the organization. Yeah. And that was very much the focus. That said, we did from the customer's perspective, the program was a whole program. So we needed to make sure that those elements fitted together with the other two legs, the business and the technical legs, at the same time.
Absolutely. And what about the technical and the business part? What about those legs, if you like? How do we fit them?
Well, the technical, and as I mentioned, it's technical and or professional, because for some of the candidates on the program, they were working in finance or HR or whatever. They weren't necessarily engineers, even though they're working for a technical organization. So, but we very much made sure that they each had a development plan within their technical area or their professional area. And that was obviously much more set by their line manager, but we had a role centrally of making sure that that was happening and tracking how it was going on and how did it fit in with the rest of their development. And of course, well, at least this isn't always the way, but for this organization, each individual had their own tailor-made technical or professional track. Sometimes some organizations that we've worked with less closely, but they have like a graduate pool and they all go through the same technical development. But for this organization, the individual was recruited into the line, had a line manager, and was active in that way from the start, as opposed to being a graduate pool that kind of then rotated around the organization.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I think, assumptions could be made that actually the institution would do engineering early careers programs, but actually the skills that we're teaching, particularly in terms of those professional skills and basically how to behave at work, whether you're going to end up being a manager or a director, or whether you are going to stay on the tools, or whether you're working in HR or finance, actually how we communicate, how we engage, all of that kind of stuff is really, really great value, particularly at the beginning of career, right? I think sometimes we fall into careers. I mean, I still don't really know what I'm going to be when I grow up. And you don't necessarily have that sort of handheld kind of training of what good looks like. And then you can adapt your strengths and your personality. So how did you address the business leg then, if that was the technical and the professional side?
Yeah. So the business leg was, I guess, sort of in between. We very much left the technical professional to the line manager, although not completely. We took care of the soft skills, and the business leg was sort of the in-betweeny part, where we set up, for this particular organization I'm thinking about, we set up all kinds of different activities for the participants on the program to undertake, but with the business's support. So, for example, we had business briefings. Business briefings this was a very large organization, and we got different senior managers from different parts of the organization to come and talk to the whole group about what their bit did. Mm-hmm. And if there were any graduates working in that area, they would often be asked to work with that senior manager to put together and then sometimes make the presentation to give the business briefing. So that was, again, the goal of the business side really is to give a holistic view. And I think there's a little bit of a tendency when you hire an engineer into a technical role to give them loads of technical training, but and then maybe some team skills and how to work together and communicate, as you've just been saying. But it's also important, we think, to give them a business understanding. It doesn't mean they've got to be, they're going to be accountants or something, but they need to understand how the organization works, how what they do impacts upon the bottom line. And so there are all kinds of things around that. I'll mention a couple more in a minute. Mentors, we gave each graduate, as we called them, mentors from a different part of the business.
Okay.
Now that was slightly complex, but where possible, we'd give them mentors from another part of the business, so they got to know other parts of the organization as well. There was certain caveats to that. If they were in a very technical role and they didn't want, they could choose to be a bit more narrow. But part of the goal of the mentoring programs was to give them spread. We also gave them a business project to do, which they undertook in teams and worked together with a senior manager within the business to support them in exploring and understanding something outside of their technical or functional skill. So it was getting them to expand their thinking. And then last of all, we had some workshops on commercial awareness type workshops, financial understanding. So again, not to make them accountants, but to understand how business worked and fundamentally what contribution they could make to the profitability, revenue, whatever it might be, of the organization themselves. understanding the importance, for example, of cash flow, or those kind of business things that perhaps typically is not the focus of an engineer or someone who's working in HR.
Yeah, I think, quite often, and I'm going to come to some of the poll results in a moment. I think quite often, if we are a manager or a director of a department, or, a part of a business, it can be very easy to just concentrate on what our requirements are in terms of, getting that pipeline of talent in, and, where are we future-proofing and filling the gaps. And it is really easy to give technical people technical training. They love it. They're big learners and they really want to get better. But actually having that sort of bigger visibility over how does commercial functionality work, and also in my role, how is that applied? So when they're, asking for more budget to go and test and learn and play with more things, how do they approach procurement? How do they communicate with the commercial team? Without that more well-rounded understanding, it's almost limiting the opportunities, right? And also, I really love that idea of that cross-mentoring. I think quite often, again, we're sort of in our lanes. We know what we think good looks like. But actually, by having someone from a completely different part of the business, to talk to and to kind of share ideas with, you're going to come up with better, more creative solutions, right?
Yeah. And if I may just chuck something in there, that if we go back to the aims of the program for this particular organization, it was very much developing leaders of the future. Now, leaders of the future might still be in a technical area, but once you're a leader, a manager, director of a department, whether you're in a technical area or not, you need to be thinking more strategically and more commercially. Yeah. And so it was the kind of the foundations for enabling the participants on the program to fulfill that need of stepping into those leadership roles and starting to think that way right from the start. And again, you're engineering grad, you come into an organization, it's very easy to just get very narrow-minded and very focused on developing technically, which of course you absolutely need to do. But if you've got this longer-term view, it's about just raising their head up from time to time. So day to day, that's what they did. They were focused on developing technically, but they'd come to us on the graduate program and we'd remind them that actually, there's a medium and longer term here, and if you want to be in more senior leadership roles in the future, you need to be thinking about that now, and that's what that was about.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of our latest poll, how many early careers candidates do you have per year in your organisation? At the moment, nearly 60% is 0 to 5. I would wonder if that's by department or if that's across the whole organisation, because obviously we tend to think from our island. And about 26% are 20 plus. So, tailoring the early careers programs between, those smaller cohorts of people and then the much bigger organisation. I imagine it probably would feel easier. We're going to bring in 20 plus people and we can put them all on the same early careers program and they have this learning experience together. But if I've only got 1 or 2 people, what do I do with them? How do I help them in their early careers? What would you advise?
Well, this is actually where this webinar came from. We were talking to some larger organizations with larger graduate, again, they called it a graduate program, but early careers programs, and realizing how important these programs were to attracting talent. And then we were talking to a smaller organization who was in the 0 to 5 category, who, it was 2. They didn't have the critical mass to have an internal program. So we have been exploring as an institution, putting together an open program for that group, and have people with 1 or 2 graduates get a lot of the benefits of having an internal larger program by sending them on an open program and having a cohort together, going through together. Obviously, there are some things that we can't reproduce that would happen from an internal program, but we're just exploring that. And actually, I've got a couple of questions for the audience, if they wouldn't mind sharing their thoughts at the end to help us with that.
Shall we pose those questions now, and then if people can put their answers in the chats, then we, gives them a little time, and we can revisit those answers in a moment. Would that work for you?
Yep, absolutely. One of the questions we're thinking about is duration. We've currently got 18 months as a duration of the program, and we're wondering what people's thoughts are on that. Typically, a graduate program is 12, 18, or 24 months.
Okay.
We've tended to go for 24-month programs in the past, but we got a little bit of feedback that was too long. So, just out of interest, particularly if you're in the 1 to 2, the 0 to 5, 1 to 5 category, and you were going to send your early careers candidates on an IMechE open program, what would your preference be for length of program?
Yeah. Okay. So if the audience can just pop that in the chat, and I just want to clarify something, because we use the terminology open and in company. So when we talk about an open program, we talk about a program that is freely available to anyone to book on. So your early careers people will be working with a mix of people from various different organizations. And actually, I think that could potentially create for a really interesting, kind of dynamic. If you're getting someone from aerospace or railway or automotive or, materials engineering or whatever it might be, they're going to be learning loads of different things, not only from us as, providers, but also from their peers. So yeah, if you can just pop into the chat, if you were to do a program, would it be 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? What kind of commitment do you think your people could commit to? Should we go back to your experience, Andy, and talk about, how, so your role, you were very much involved in terms of evaluation of the candidates going through this program and the participants. So, describe that to me. What did it entail? How does it work? What are the benefits?
Well, actually, it's the opposite. I had no role in evaluation of the participants, and it was a very conscious decision. One of the things that's quite difficult to. It was a little bit blurred at first. For this, I'm thinking about this one particular program that I've talked about before. Sure. I have a role to support the graduates and as again early careers, and ended up something of a confidant to them and almost like a mentor, an unofficial mentor, where they had problems, they could come to me, they could share them, they share this insecurities, they share their uncertainties, and in order for them to be on a workshop, for example, if they knew that or they believed that I was there to evaluate their performance, they'd be constantly trying to impress me, inverted commas. Yeah. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted them to be open, ask questions, stupid questions, not be guarded in any way. So in the end, we actually removed me completely from the evaluation process. And that was a really important thing. And as a consequence, the graduates were able to share and talk to me about things, and a lot of them contacted me outside of the official stuff that we were doing to ask me advice or whatever, and that became an important part of the role.
So,
it's not evaluating.
So absolutely not evaluating, but that sort of coaching, mentoring kind of, approach to working with those individuals, because I can totally see how if they thought they were going to be graded by you as the person delivering this program, there is the sort of teacher mentality. I want to show the best version of myself. And quite often when you're looking at the personal development stuff, actually we need to sort of get under the skin of people a bit and find out what are the vulnerabilities, where are they finding it challenging, what's the fear around, things that are holding them back. So yeah, I can see how that would be absolutely invaluable. We're coming to the sort of end of our little conversation, and I just wanted to say to the audience, if you've got any other questions that you would like Andy and I to discuss, now's the time to pop those in the chat, because we'll be going through those later on. But just to kind of summarize, what do you think the key success factors of building an early careers program that's really going to help set those people up for success? What does it entail?
Well, I think we used to look at this from two perspectives. Actually, we looked at it obviously from the participants on the program. What made it successful for them, and fundamentally that was the core of it. It's about their development, and it's about giving them the skills and that they need to progress. But there were also an organizational perspective here, where we want to make sure that we got the organization involved in the program. So most obviously line managers needed to be supporters of their graduate. Again, this is obviously in that model where the early careers candidate has a line manager as opposed to being in a sort of central pool. But the line manager involvement and engagement was really important in that, and and we worked very hard to make sure that line managers were part of this program and didn't feel like that they had their reportee being taken away from them. We wanted them to be part of that. But it was also wider organizational objectives around visibility of the program, and we were almost champions for this group of individuals within the organization to make sure that people knew they were there and how great they were and what they were doing, so that we were constantly trying to raise their profile within the organization by, again, it's a bit like signing up to a website for a newsletter, and some you sign up to, you just get inundated with 12 emails a day. That's too much. It's finding the balance with constant but not irritating amounts of communication, and when there's something to say as well. Actually, that just reminds me of something that I wanted to mention that I haven't, and that was this idea of visibility and senior management engagement. So obviously it was important to get their line managers involved, but it was also very important to get senior managers involved, and we did that with those business briefings I was talking about earlier. But we also had business projects that they worked on, and they were giving sponsors who were senior managers in that. And we also very often would set up mentoring programs for a lot of the programs that I've worked with. And again, the one that's in my mind in particular today, the senior managers within the organizations that I would meet in other contexts as well, on their leadership programs that I was running for them, and I was constantly basically recruiting people to be involved in the graduate program, either as a mentor or in business briefings or champions in some way. And it was really important for part of the program and our role in the program. And when I say our, I mean myself and the internal person that was responsible for the project, to raise the profile of the program and the graduates within it, and doing that with senior managers. And when senior managers were seen to be getting involved in it, others follow, and it became really created a momentum there.
Super. Just to kind of close out, I think it might be helpful, and you know, excuse me, it might be helpful for those people who are in smaller organisations and they might only have a handful of people coming in year on year. I can imagine that trying to sort of take a chunk out of an early careers program and build something around skills and technical and business acumen, or whatever title you want to give it, can be very, very overwhelming, and sort of almost a bit too much of a task. Have you got anything from your experience where when people have tried to do that, what the benefits are? You talked about that visibility, you talked about much more engagement, we talked about cross-pollination. For those kind of smaller organizations with lower numbers of entry, how can we help them to make this slightly less daunting?
I think the fact that it's a program and the order in which you do things, for one thing, you start with stuff that feels less intimidating. I'm not sure they do find it intimidating, really. I don't think it's that scary. I think perhaps they need persuading that they need it more than that they're scared of it. A lot of the time, an engineer, for example, will come into a technical role from their educational background looking and excited and enthusiastic about becoming more technical and getting more technical experience and mastering and becoming a technical expert. Mm-hmm. And they don't really perceive the need to understand business stuff and communication rubbish. And I think it's convincing them more than, it's not that they're scared of it, it's more that they just need convincing that they need it.
Yeah, okay. We have had a question from Claire. She's asked, do you have a training program framework?
Well, interesting that you ask that, Claire, because we're just putting together, yes is the short answer. We have, but the trouble is, it's not a one size fits all. Clearly, when you're working with a particular customer, they have slightly different needs and different focuses. So working with a customer, we would always do it tailor-made for them. That said, I mentioned earlier that we're putting together an open program, and we have a template which I think we're going to share with you at the very end as to what that's looking like in its current state, but it is a work in progress. And the length of it, for example, we were talking about 12, 18 or 24 months. That's more thoughts from you. But so
should we bring up that template that we had, that this is an evolving program, right? And this is based on some feedback that we've had from our existing clients, and you sort of kind of, do you want us to give us a headline of the thinking of these types of programs that could be?
Yeah, so as you can see from the screen, we've currently got it as 18 months, and these are the kinds of things that we have planned in, and this is the open program that Fiona was referring to. It's disappeared.
Yeah, it's gone.
Rob,
I don't know why it's gone.
Can you put that back up again? Thanks, Rob. So it's broken down, and you'll see that there's various different elements to it. Claire, to answer your question directly, yes and no. I mean, what on the open program, what we're trying to do is, it's disappeared again, Rob, is provide a program that anybody can attend, and it focuses on the key sort of aspects of it. This very much is aimed at the smaller organizations who only have 0 to 5 and don't have the capacity to run their own internal program as a group. So I guess this is the answer, Claire, yeah. But that said, if we were working with a larger organization who had an internal program, then, or we're looking to put together an internal program, it might look very different than this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, going back to, we asked about the length of time. Actually, the answers that we got were 24 months. So I think that's quite interesting, right? And again, we are looking at developing this, what we call an open program for anyone to join, even if you have a large organization. And if you scan this QR code, and that's just a register for interest, and we can have a conversation around, what are you looking for and what would work for you, because we are trying to tailor something that actually will really benefit the community of engineers that we work with. So I don't know if any of you want to scan that now. So Andy, we've obviously talked around lots of different things. Is there any kind of key summary or takeaway you would like to leave us with today?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think yes. I think fundamentally what has made these programs work best is involving the wider organization. The more that it's, if you take these early careers candidates away from the day-to-day and do something with them, and then send them back, and there's a disconnect between those two things, I think that's when these things fall down a little bit. Line managers start to get frustrated that their person's been taken away. Senior managers don't really get it. It's about making this is a coordinated and connected effort that the whole organization sees the benefit of it and wants and is keen to contribute. And to some extent, it always amazed me with this particular organization how very senior people who were very, very busy were very keen to be part of it and act as mentors to graduates and be involved in it and be part of it. And so I would say that's probably the fundamental thing, that from the sort of the big picture perspective, from the smaller picture, from looking at it from the inside out, I would say it's making sure that what you've got in the program is specifically tailored to the needs of your early careers candidates.
Yeah.
And it is important, and it's why I hesitated to answer Claire's question. I think that it's there is no one size fits all here. You do really have to sort of sit down and think about what you're trying to achieve, who they are, what is the audience, and how are you going to meet the needs that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to what you said earlier, it's almost convincing either the candidate and or the organisation of the benefits of committing to these types of programs, because there is a big time commitment, personal commitment, kind of financial commitment. There is a lot of commitment, but actually if it's really clear that the organisation, for example, has an aging population and they're not able to attract a diverse and younger talent pool to future-proof them, that could be one reason. If you have and if you're inundated with loads of early careers people and they're really, mixed kind of levels of qualifications, it can be a really good way to connect them into the organisation and help retain them, because recruitment is really expensive. By the time you've recruited someone and trained them, and if they're skipping out the door within 12 months, that's an expensive problem, right? So
and that's very much I think that's really important, that we found that graduates on the graduate program that we've been talking about were very much less likely to leave because they wanted to complete the program and felt that there was a real benefit in that. And then
absolutely,
work hard again.
I think even having a program like this shows the level of commitment and investment to your people. And I know that we talk about the technical people are really good at the technical stuff, but actually we all want to be supported and nurtured and enjoy the work that we do, and and kind of be part of something, and how can I show up and what's my value, and by having something like this, I think demonstrates that the organisation has even thought about it or cares. I'm going to challenge you slightly because, you know, I appreciate one size does not fit all. And, you know, that's what we do really well at the institution when we're going into an organisation to work with them. We spend a lot of time in terms of design and planning and, you know, really understanding what are the aims, what does good look like. Whereas this, you know, potential open course that clearly some people will benefit from because they just don't have that critical mass. The thing that it's going to do for them, yes, it's going to have the foundations of people management, leadership skills, you know, some technical training that we can offer or directions to offer, you know, this is where you get your business certificates or whatever it might be.
Right.
But actually, you know, again, at the institution, we are really good at in that room tailoring to meet the needs of the individual delegates. And when we're working with them for such a long period of time, it is a relationship. You know, we are knowing them and understanding them and, you know, kind of supporting them and mentoring them the best way we can. And we do that with our membership, and we do that in lots of different ways. So yes, one size does not fit all, but it'll always be tailored, you know, whatever way we can.
There are certain core aspects, absolutely. I think I was more thinking about the sort of the, you know, someone in this technical area will need different technical development than someone in this technical area. But in terms of the soft skills and the human skills, the people skills, then there are, and you know, that's what we're trying to put together and seeking to give the kind of fundamental skills that people need in those areas. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Andy, for your time and sharing all of your lovely experience. As we've said a couple of times, you know, we would love to hear from you. You know, the audience that have dialed in or the audience that are watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear from you. So please, you know, reach out for us. Tell us what you need, because, you know, we know that we can support you, and we've got proven kind of evidence that these programs really, really help in terms of personal development and engagement with your teams. So we would love to help. So thank you very much, everyone. And that's it for today, and we will see you next time.